Hi, I'm Tony. Welcome to Sports Bike Shop's review of the Nolan N120-1 helmet. Helmets like this Nolan N120-1 are becoming more and more popular because when they're opened up, they become a much more practical open face option than a regular flip helmet. I've given this one plenty of use, and in my experience it's a good example of why this type of lid is getting more attention. I've worn this one for around 1,000 miles on the road, so I can run through the essential info and also give you some personal insight on what it's like to wear. The N120-1 has a polycarbonate shell. Nolan use a specific type called Lexan, which is the same as most people use in their visors. Weight on this size medium is 1,722 grams on our scales. That's above average for a regular helmet, but it's pretty good for a Flipover. This helmet features in our best Flipovers for 2024 video, and it was the lightest all plastic lid in that guide. You can get lighter Flipovers, but you'll need to go for a composite fibre or carbon fibre shell to get that reduction in weight. So having worn this on the road for about 1,000 miles, I never found weight to actually be an issue. The operation of the chin bar on this helmet is similar to other Flipovers, but it's not identical. The main difference is a staple of Nolan's flips, the pinch and lift opening mechanism. Pulling the bottom button out frees the one just above it, and then pinch the two together to free the lock, and it lets you raise the chin bar. We have had some examples of this top button here getting caught inside the shell, so if that happens to you, you can just poke something in that gap and make it come out freely. The visor needs to be up for the chin bar to lift properly, so if it's not up already, the system automatically raises it out of the way as you bring the chin bar up. Then you just slide the chin bar all the way to the back of the lid, where the last part of the travel adds some extra resistance to make it sit back firmly. Now, I'm confident there's enough resistance to stop that chin bar ever slipping forward of its own accord, but if you want to be 100% sure, there's a locking button on the side. With the chin bar back, you've now effectively got an open face helmet. The N120-1 has been dual homologated, so it's been safety tested in this configuration, as well as being tested as a full face with that chin bar closed. Now, this is where we see two of the main benefits of a Flipover rather than a traditional flip front. With the chin bar at the back of the helmet like this, there's better weight distribution than if it's sat on top of the helmet, and there's also less drag because it's not sat in the airflow. We can also now use the outer visor with the chin bar back, and that's something you can't do with a regular flip. So if you're looking at a flip because you want to ride with the chin bar up, then a Flipover like this is a much more practical way of doing it. I wore this helmet for a long weekend away to Anglesey, and it was absolutely perfect for it. I could flip the chin bar back when I was coasting along the coast, and then I could bring the chin bar back down for the main roads and dual carriageways. Chin ventilation for this helmet comes from a slide down opening, which sends air to the top of the chin bar. It's then channeled through outlets on either side of the nose to flow into the eye port. It does refresh the inside of the helmet, but it's not the most direct form of ventilation. Up top, there's a single slider that reveals two inlet holes, and air is then channeled over the top of your head towards exhaust vents at the back of the helmet just here. Some of that air will get through to your head, and warm air inside the helmet will also be able to travel up and take that path over the top to the exhaust vent. But like the chin vent, this doesn't feel the most direct in terms of incoming air. Still, it does work. The style of helmet also meant that if I ever felt like I was about to overheat, I could just lift the chin bar out of the way for a little bit anyway. Okay, onto the visor. Peripheral vision is excellent. There are two sizes of visor, one for each size of shell, and that contributes to you getting a wide field of view. In terms of travel for that visor, realistically there are three positions for the visor to rest in. You've got fully open, there's a small cracked position, or fully closed. I found that cracked position to be pretty good for allowing in a small amount of air. The visor is protected against misting by a pin lock insert. Nolan are allowed to make their own pin locks, so I can't tell you what grade that pin lock is. The good thing about that is that Nolan installed the pin lock at the factory, so there's no need for us to do it ourselves, and also more chance that it's going to be correctly installed. If you do need to alter the tension though, Nolan even make that simple for you. Putting a coin in the slot on the outside of the pin and then rotating it will reduce or increase the space between the posts and tighten or relax the tension. It's easy to change the visor as well. Early examples of Flipover helmets made it a right pain to swap visors, but thankfully that's now changed. We'll probably make a dedicated video on changing it, but pulling this lever here and then tilting the visor forward lets you unhook the visor from the bottom. There's a sun visor backing up the outer visor, and it runs in the same way as other premium Nolans. It drops in 5 steps with a sliding switch on the left rim, and then pushing a button at the front releases it in one go. It's not the deepest sun visor around, but I found it did a decent job, and I also like the fact that it's anti-fog coated so it doesn't mist up on damp rides. Okay, let's go inside. The comfort lining's plush and it's easily removable. The material around the head is slightly grippier than the fabric that covers the cheek pads to help that sit well around your head. This lid has Nolan's liner positioning control system, which allows you to fiddle around and change the way the helmet sits on your head. There are plastic belts attached to the liner and they dictate the angle at which the helmet sits on your head. So if you want it angled forward or back, then adjusting the belts will do that for you. The fastening strap follows Nolan's customary two-step lock. Pulling the red tab allows the micrometric buckle to open and that releases the fastener. So if you're used to a single pull fastener, this does feel slightly fiddlier at first, but I promise it doesn't take too long to get used to it. The base of the liner, that's got a skirt that pulls in around your neck when you fasten the helmet, and that helps to reduce drafts and noise. Now, noise is always a tricky subject to cover, as everyone's sensitivity to sound is different and lots of other factors affect it, not just the shape of the helmet. I had no issues with noise in the 1,000 or so miles I spent wearing this helmet, but I have to say that doesn't mean you won't have issues yourself. Behind the liner there are speaker recesses. They're set up for Nolan's official intercom systems, which are made for them by Sena. A pair of 40mm speakers from an off-the-shelf Sena intercom will fit in those recesses too, but anything bigger, or a pair of Cardo 40mm speakers, they're too big. If you want those, it will come down to whether there's enough room between your ears and the helmet to accommodate those speakers comfortably. Nolan lists 5 intercom models as being compatible with this helmet. It will be a bit awkward if you prefer an off-the-shelf system to those, but not impossible. I fitted a Sena ST1 Spider intercom and that fitted okay. The speakers sat nicely in the recesses, but I had to stick the control module to the shell with a self-adhesive pad, and it was further back than I'd like. It was somewhere around about here. That is a pretty general issue with all flip-over helmets though, as the rotation of the chin bar pivot takes up quite a lot of space. Okay, let's move on to sizing, pricing and approvals. The Nolan N120-1 comes in sizes from double extra small up to triple extra large, which gives this the widest size range of all the flip-over helmets as we record this. There are 2 shell sizes. The smallest covers helmet sizes up to and including medium, and then the bigger shell covers helmet sizes large and above. In terms of prices, as we record this, plain black, plain grey and plain white are £299, and it's £309.99 for other plain designs. Graphics range from £369.99 to £379.99. This design is a 2024 graphic that's been discontinued. The new graphics for 25 onwards are a big departure from this design. Now those prices put this helmet towards the top end for flipovers, but I feel the finish and quality of the materials does help to justify the extra outlay. In terms of approvals, this helmet meets ECE 2206 for use on the road, and as I said earlier, it's dual homologated, so it's legal to ride with the chin bar up or down. There's no ACU gold sticker, but I can't imagine anyone wanting to use a lid like this on track or especially in races. There's no rating under the UK government's SHARP testing programme as we record this, but we'll add details to the description below if a rating is published. Okay, let's wrap it up. I used this helmet on the road for a good number of miles and I was actually very impressed with it. Everything on it works well and feels well made, and it's my personal favourite of the flip over helmets that I've worn. In general, I think the quality of Nolan's helmets is overlooked in this country, and this is a very good example of how to make a flip over helmet properly. The issues I have with it are ventilation that doesn't feel particularly strong in terms of airflow, and the struggle to fit a universal intercom without it being tricky to operate. But those are pretty common issues across the board with flip over helmets, so I promise I'm not coming down too hard on Nolan for that. I hope that tells you everything you wanted to know about the Nolan N120-1, but if there's anything you'd like to ask or to add, then please pop a comment below. Thanks for watching.